Get started here. Again, my name is Matt St. John from V Technologies. Thank you everyone for joining my session. And today we're going to discuss StarShip, its integration with Sage 100, and how using StarShip can really help optimize your whole shipping process. Really, you'll probably hear me say it a couple times, but we're here to actually help streamline that whole shipping process. So, I want to set this up. We want to set up your shipper systems where the less things they have to click, type, touch, of course, the better. So with that being said, real quick, just wanted to discuss a little bit about V Technologies as a company. And then, of course, we'll go over some bullet points about the features of StarShip, and then we will jump into that live demo. So again, if any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I'll save some time towards the end, and we can address any further questions. They let us know that there is no hard stop. So if we run over, as long as everyone wants to stay and continue to ask questions, we can do that. But back to V Technologies. So as you see here, we've actually been developing integrated shipping solutions since 1987, so 34 years now. The company is located in Connecticut, and everything we do is done in-house. So we're not outsourcing anything like support, development, QA. Again, it's all done in the office in Connecticut. We are also a UPS ready provider as well as a Platinum FedEx compatible solution. So basically what that means is we are a certified solution for both UPS and FedEx. So both of those carriers, they do have what they call subsidy programs where you could actually qualify for free funding. And of course, you can use that funding to purchase StarShip. Also, being a certified vendor, things like our labels are already pre-certified. So we go through those pains so you don't have to. Right. If anyone has any questions about the certification or the UPS or FedEx subsidy program, please feel free, let me know, or let anyone else know, maybe your sales rep, and I can definitely send over further information. Now, with StarShip, we actually do integrate with over a dozen ERP systems, but we've been working with Sage for 21 years now. And of course, we are a Sage Gold development partner. And throughout our 34 years, we've actually had over 10,000 businesses that have used StarShip to help streamline their day-to-day shipping activity. So again, these are just some of the key points about StarShip. First off, being build a multi-carrier strategy. This is really important, especially nowadays with COVID. So StarShip is multi-carrier, multi-mode. So we do have live integrations with over 24 carriers, being small parcel, LTL, even third-party logistic companies or brokers. So with COVID, a lot of the trucking companies, they're backlogged. So a lot of shippers, they're seeing things like, hey, we can't get there for 2 weeks. So really having that ability to have multiple carriers, or as I like to say, more tools in your shed, is going to give you better options to actually get your packages there on time, especially nowadays with the holidays coming up. We want to get those shipments out there on time so the package could be delivered before the holiday. And we'll go over that on the demo because you're going to see that we can even do things like best way shipping. So a lot of our clients set up StarShip to always automatically select maybe the least expensive carrier or the least amount of delivery days. So again, we'll get into that, showing you how StarShip can actually even automate the selection of the carrier service. Right. Also with StarShip, we're going to we can set it up to automatically run address validation, residential commercial flag, we can validate that automatically. So going to help, of course, avoid errors, but not only avoid those errors, but also help reduce those address correction charges or that commercial residential fee that you might be currently experiencing. Also with StarShip, we're going to get into doing branded emails, so you can create your own branded email with your company information. Of course, that can go out to your customers, and on that, it's going to show them, here's your item box detail if you'd like. Here's the carrier, this is where we're shipping it to. You should expect X amount of packages by the ETA that is returned from the carrier. So we'll go over that. And also, if anyone out there is doing drop shipping, blind drop shipment, third party collect type, or bill recipient, I'm going to show you how StarShip can actually even help automate that. So again, I don't want, as a shipper, I don't want to go there and change my billing type and manually type in an account number for my customer. With StarShip, we could set that up where I don't have to worry about that. Again, I just want to bring in the shipment, maybe do some live rate shopping and get it out the door. Okay. Also, you'll see StarShip can generate packing lists, bill lading forms, international documents, and those documents can even be customized. So maybe when they print out, everything's filled out and we already have it signed and dated. So as a shipper, I don't have to stop and fill out anything. I just grab the document off the printer and it's good to go. All right. And then, of course, we also integrate with other EDI solutions, inventory management, WMS systems. A lot of the companies that are attending this event, we do integrate with. So, for example, with an EDI, StarShip could be set up to automatically send that required shipping information back into the EDI solution. With it like a WMS, just know however you define the handheld or define that shipment on the handheld device, that's how it's going to flow into StarShip. And like I said, we'll go over that to kind of show you that process. This is just a snapshot of some of the carriers that StarShip does integrate with. So like I said, over 2 dozen. We also integrate with Canadian carriers as well. But with the carrier integration, StarShip's going to do things like live rate shopping. So we're going to pull in your live contract rates. So no staging tables, those are live calls. So for example, tomorrow UPS ups say a fuel surcharge. When you rate shop tomorrow, it would include that new fuel charge rate. Sorry, I didn't talk this morning. So there's no like downloading or again, we have to update these tables. It's just a live call. And that can be done at time of shipment or even from inside a Sage at sales order entry. And I'll show you that during the demo as well, but we're going to give that power to do live rating also to the front office, to our sales reps, customer service reps, and right in the sales order module inside of Sage. Okay. Other things with the carrier integrations, automatically returning hyperlink tracking numbers or pro numbers. As long as the LTL carrier supports it, also things like electronic pickup, where StarShip's going to ping the carrier and tell them, hey, we have a shipment ready to be picked up at this date in between these hours. So again, now as a shipper, I don't have to call the warehouse or call the trucking company or go into their portal and process that information. StarShip's automatically going to take care of it. Also, if anyone out there is using e-commerce sites, Amazon, Shopify, eBay, even your website, maybe it's running a back end like WooCommerce, Magento, BigCommerce. StarShip does integrate with those e-commerce sites. We can integrate with them 2 different ways. We do have a direct integration where, for example, I'll use Shopify, but maybe I want right from StarShip to pull or order directly from Shopify into StarShip. Of course, after I process that shipment, StarShip's going to write back the shipping data to the order on Shopify. Now, honestly, a lot of my customers, they don't do that because it's really bypassing the ERP system, so say Sage 100. So what most customers do, they use our e-commerce integrations as what we call an extension, where we're going to take that Shopify order, someone's going to bring it into Sage, create that sales order. We would then ship against the sales order out of Sage. And once, of course, we click ship and process, what StarShip was going to do is write back the shipping information to Sage as normal, but it would also update the order on Shopify. Okay, so 2 different ways. Of course, if you're using any of the other third-party e-commerce integrations, then our integration is not needed because what StarShip is really doing, we're dropping all the correct shipping information into the correct Sage tables. So, of course, those third-party integrations can just grab the data from those Sage tables. Okay. All right. So with that being said, let me X out of here and jump on my demo machine, and we can process a shipment. So let me just switch over. First off, you're going to see one of the nice things with StarShip is, as a shipper, I actually do not need to be inside of Sage 100. Don't even need it installed on my, say, shipping workstation out in the warehouse. And here is the StarShip program. So again, multi-carrier, multi-mode. If anyone out there is currently using UPS WorldShip, FedEx Ship Manager, or as I mentioned earlier, maybe we're going to the carrier's portal online, StarShip is going to replace all that. We're going to be able to process all our shipments right from inside the StarShip program. Now, we don't have to actually pull an order from Sage in this case. We could also just create one-off orders. Maybe an employee wants to ship something, or it's the holidays and we want to send out a calendar or something like that. I also have a lot of clients that they ship samples and they don't put a sales order inside of Sage. So we could simply click create shipment and have StarShip populate the shipping information, and even generate shipping documents, for any order, or I should say any non-order inside of Sage. Okay. But if we're going to be pulling from Sage, up top here is our source information. So we can pull by sales order number, customer number, or even by invoice number. Most clients, it is by the sales order number. And then over here is our source field. So this is where I can manually type in a sales order number. If it happens to be barcoded, StarShip also fully supports plug and play barcode scanners. So as a shipper, I could even just scan in, again, in this case, that sales order number. StarShip would automatically load that order. Okay. Now, down below, also, I can manually look up my sales orders. So even though I'm not inside of Sage, this is still a live call. So these are all my current sales orders that I have inside of Sage 100. So as the front office is adding them or making changes to them, StarShip is automatically going to be picking those up. And if I'm manually looking up orders, up top here, we can even add filters. So we can even filter by really any of these Sage 100 fields. Maybe I want to narrow that search result down. These columns, you can sort by these columns as well. You could drag these columns around, or maybe you just want to remove a bunch of them. So you do have the flexibility of kind of customizing the screen for the shipper. Now, a feature of StarShip is the ability to group related orders. So I'm just going to simply check this checkbox. And now as you see what StarShip has done, it's showing me, hey, you have 21 orders that are going to the same ship to in East Troy. So as a shipper, I could select all of those orders, or maybe I only want to do a handful of them. But I can select those. I can then click Create Shipment, and StarShip is simply going to consolidate these 4 shipments into one shipment. That way I'm not sending out 4 individual shipments to the same ship to. We could also do by the same PO number as well. Okay, so that's one feature of StarShip. Other features, we can even get into batch processing. So again, I could select as many orders as I like, click Process Selected, and I'll have some options here, but this is basically just going to batch process all the orders I've selected. I can even set it up to automatically merge those same orders going to ship tos or POs. But from here, again, I click a button, click OK, and StarShip's just going to process all those shipments. So it's going to just start printing out shipping labels, shipping documents, whatever I've enabled inside of StarShip, and of course, write that data back into Sage. So I mentioned this, honestly, a lot of clients don't use this because you do have to think about it. You're not going to have the opportunity to actually put items in boxes or maybe add additional packages. Of course, the weights would have to be set up inside of Sage or inside of StarShip. But a lot of our clients that do use this, it is, hey, Black Friday, we had a special on one item. Now we have 1,000 orders. They ship in the same type of box. They always ship complete. The weights are set up. So they'll use batch processing. Another way you can use batch processing is also if you're using a WMS, because again, all the information can be defined on that handheld scanning device. So it's really going to already be set up. And of course, weights would have to be entered somewhere, but that could even be done on a handheld. So another option there, if you're using a WMS, you might even be able to get into batch processing. All right. So for the sake of the demo, I'm just going to grab a simple order here. We'll just scroll down. I'll grab 222, and I'm just going to click this little truck icon. And all StarShip is going to do is bring in all the sales order header and line item detail information. Okay, we're just simply data mapping these fields. So with StarShip, again, we want to streamline this, but we can take any of these StarShip fields and map them to a Sage standard field, or we can even look at user-defined fields if you have those set up. So up top is my source. So that's the company, sales order number. With StarShip, we do fully support multiple companies, multiple locations, warehouses, so on. If you have multiple warehouses, we can even set this up where, hey, when user Matt is logged in, and if we have a sales order with items from warehouse 1 and warehouse 2, Matt can only ship items that are from warehouse 1, and then that's all StarShip's going to display for me. Okay. Sender information, this could be your company information. As you see here, I have this actually set up as a blind drop shipment. So StarShip's automatically changed this to Tractor Supply Company for me. Okay. And I'm just simply looking at the comment line on the sales order. I actually have a value translation field. So on the sales order, it says PSC. StarShip knows that equals Tractor Supply Company. Okay, so we do fully support those blind drop shipments. We even, if this was coming from a different zip code, StarShip supports wherever the zip code is entered here, live rating from that zip code. Okay. Recipient information, of course, that's just the ship to. Again, as I mentioned, StarShip could be set up to automatically do address validation. If the address is invalid, the shipper would receive a pop-up. Here's the valid address. They could select that. StarShip would automatically change it here. And then we can even take that and reverse translate it back onto the address field, say on the invoice. Now, transportation, we're just going to look at your ship via codes. Those are going to tell StarShip carrier, service, account, billing type. So here, this one's set up. StarShip knows, oh, yep, this is a third-party shipment. Here's my customer's information. So this little drop-down is a database StarShip has where you could actually set up your customer's address information. And then if they have multiple account numbers, that could be entered here. And then as my system is done, it's automatically selected ABF and populated the account number. Now, we also validate the billing account number entered here. So as you see, I removed a character. Now it's yelling at me. It's UPS. It has to be 6 characters. And this number is fake. So I'm just going to change this to prepaid because StarShip's not going to let me ship that with that fake number. Okay, so just another way we're helping saving, because normally if you do a third-party shipment and the billing account is invalid or not correct, doesn't match your customers, the carrier will actually end up charging you on your account for that shipment. Okay, now shipment details, of course, these are just our shipment options. So again, we can flag these from Sage. I can manually select them. Even for example, with insurance, I have customers set up where StarShip automatically populates the UPS declared value fields based on what they're shipping. So StarShip does bring in all that data from Sage, so we can even automatically populate that information. Down here with the carrier email, I actually have StarShip set up to always select, yeah, I want you to use the carrier email. Always bring in this one email address, or we can bring in multiple emails. But my system, I set it up where I only want to use the carrier email if there's a delay or an exception, because again, I'm going to use StarShip's e-notify program to send out my own custom template. So it's going to have my company information. It's going to have hyperlink tracking numbers. It's actually going to show the customer item box detail. And I'll show you an example of that towards the end of the demo here. And then over here, these are just user-defined fields. So we can even map in additional user-defined fields. Maybe we need to get some additional information on a label or on a document. So we could map those in, use StarShip user-defined fields. And then, of course, once that information is inside StarShip, we could use it to put it on documents, labels, or whatever we need to do with it. Okay. Now, packaging, this is normally in a live environment, the first spot I go as a shipper, because as I mentioned, we're going to set this up so all this data up top, that's all going to be automatically populated for my shipper. We can even do a tab sequence, so when the shipper comes in here, it automatically brings them to this packaging field. So here with this blanket, as you see, this is one of the items that was on my sales order, and it's actually automatically been packaged for me. And that's because I do have a packaging scenario set up, and StarShip knows that anytime I ship a blanket, it always goes into a package that I've named blanket. And so packaging scenarios, they're nice. We actually kind of designed them more for case packs. So unfortunately, it is only one item to one type of box, or one item to multiple versions of that same box or package. But you could also set quantity breaks. So here, maybe I tell StarShip only 6 blankets fit in a blanket box. And if the order was from 12, of course, StarShip would bring this in 2 blanket boxes with 6 blankets in each of the boxes. Okay. From here, maybe I need to add an additional box. This is our single package icon where I could click add a single package. If this was an LTL type shipment, of course, I could get into item box pallet detail. So there would be an icon for a pallet, and I can add additional pallets. Now, with the package icons in adding additional packages, right here is a repeat box function. So maybe this is a large order and I have, I need 10 boxes. I can even tell StarShip, what, repeat this current package. I'm going to say 2 times, maybe copy the original weights, click OK, and StarShip simply will just duplicate those boxes. So I'm just going to delete these so we don't get a bunch of labels printing. Now, item to box detail. If I wanted to move items around, for example, oh, I know the pillow can fit in the blanket box. It is simple drag and drop. And then here with the package drop down, this is just a database StarShip has where if you wanted to, you could set up your own boxes, bags, bales, pallets, envelopes, whatever it might be. And that way, as a shipper, I could even select the package type right from this drop down. Again, if you're using a WMS, all this data could be defined on the handheld device and then automatically flow into StarShip this way. So that way, again, as a shipper, I don't have to stop and mainly put items in boxes or select package types. Also with the item box detail, just know that's not a requirement. Again, I can add an additional box. I don't have to put anything in it. StarShip's not going to yell at me and say, hey, that package is empty. The only thing I do, of course, need is a weight. That's really the required field in my system here. Okay. All right, so quantities, just looking at what's available from that sales order. So if we did have items back ordered inside of Sage, of course, that's how they would flow into StarShip. If maybe inventory's off and maybe I don't have 6 blankets, I go to pick them, I only have 5. We do have a security feature. If you wanted to, you can allow your shippers to say back order an item. Of course, if I change the quantity, that's how it's going to write back into Sage. So again, hey, I only have 5 out of 6 blankets. That's how it's going to go back into Sage. Of course, once you update your invoices, this original sales order would go automatically into back order status. Now, with the packaging, we of course do actual weight. So here is either coming from a scale. I can manually type in the weights, or in my system, I'm actually just pulling them from inside of Sage. So I have all the weights set up. That way, StarShip automatically populates the weight for me. But again, we can integrate with scales, or I can manually type in weights. Now, next door is bill weight. So what bill weight is the carrier's dimensional weight. So nowadays, this is a big thing. Carriers are not charging by weight. They're actually charging by the amount of room you're taking up on the truck. So StarShip will always automatically calculate that. Again, it's based on the carrier that's selected above here. We do their exact calculation. So now in this case, I see this package is, I'm saying 16 pounds, but right now StarShip is rate shopping at 19. And then of course, when we process this, it's going to go to the carrier at the correct dimensional weight. That way later on, in this case, I'm not going to give a bill from UPS that says, hey, you sent that one box out at 16 pounds. Dimensionally, it was 19. Here's the difference. Okay? But this also gives my shipper a chance to, maybe I want to look at this and say, oh yeah, we're going to get hit with, 3 additional pounds. Maybe I could put this in a medium box and just change that and just have StarShip recalculate that. Okay, see now I'm not going to be charged that additional dimensional weight. Now the dimension field, of course, I'm using the packaging, so it's automatically populating. But if I was just to leave this as custom, I could manually type in the dimensions, and we could also make this a required field. So if you want and make sure your shippers always put in the dimensions there, that could be a required field. All right, so again, that's the packaging where I can get into that item box detail. Again, with the WMS, that automatically is populated. And then over here, line item detail. This is an area as a shipper, I'm not going to have to go into. I just showed this because I want you to know that StarShip also has its own database for your inventory items. And we do this because maybe inside of Sage, if you're doing LTL type shipments, for example, maybe you don't have the freight class, NMFC code, subcode stored. So that information can be stored inside a StarShip. Maybe you're shipping hazardous items. We do fully support that. We even fully support setting up profiles where I can put in all the correct hazardous information, even all the way down to inner packing, what type of labels we need to print. So again, that could all just be stored inside of StarShip. And as a shipper, I don't have to worry about making sure I selected hazardous or I have the right NMFC code. Anyone doing international shipments, whole database for international information. So here's the country of manufacturer, Schedule B harmonized codes. We even have a lookup. Here you can even apply filters. Maybe all your Schedule B codes start with 844. So you can filter that down. And then as a shipper, if it was missing, StarShip would alert me, hey, I need a harmonized code. They can then find it, select it, and any of this information that I add, once I process the shipment, StarShip's automatically going to save that for the next time. So I don't have to come back in here and select that Schedule B code. Okay. So again, there's all our required international data. Here's our documents. If anyone has to do any EEI classifications, has those requirements, just know we do fully support those type of shipments. We support things like, because with EEI, of course, what we're looking for is an ITN number. And StarShip can automatically have the carriers file for you with UPS, FedEx, DHL, I think also supports that. Or we also connect to the government website, the AES or ACS website, where I can just click a button. StarShip's going to pass that data to the government website. And then once you process it through the government website, we can even set up StarShip to monitor the email address that you registered on the government website with. And when they return the ITN number, StarShip will automatically grab that and put it in the correct ITN field. Okay. All right, so back to basically live shipment. Again, we'll probably just go to packaging. And then after that, we're just going to scroll down, and this is where we can do that live rate shopping. Okay. So here I just have a scenario. I'm telling StarShip, you know what, it's a small parcel shipment, so only show me my small parcel carriers and services. I do have a lot of LTL carriers set up, so I don't want to have to go through those carriers because they're really not gonna select any of those. But we can also do things like, you know what, StarShip, I want you to select the least expensive, as I mentioned, or the least amount of delivery days. So again, StarShip can automatically select the carrier based on your rules. I even have customers that use a user defined field to automatically select carrier service. One of them, they actually sell chocolate, and on the sales order, they have a simple checkbox, and the customer service rep selects it anytime the weather is above 75 degrees. And StarShip looks at that and will automatically change it to UPS second day. So less likely that the chocolate will melt. Okay. So again, automatically can select those carrier services. Over here is my published list charges. Here's contracts. So that's going to be my live negotiated rate that I have with the carrier. And then applied charge in StarShip terms is plus or minus any freight rules. So we do fully support the ability to, add maybe a percentage, a flat rate, or even subtract, calculation min maxes. So for example, here I actually have two freight rules. This one's just another simple checkbox called freight discount. It lives on the customer maintenance record inside of Sage. Because it's selected, customer receives a 25% discount. And then this one can even go all the way down to line item detail. So this is plates. You know what? Every time we ship plates, they're fragile. We always end up using additional packaging material. So let's add a flat rate of $3 to help cover for that additional packaging material. Okay. So again, with freight rules, they could be triggered by Sage fields, user-defined fields, or of course, even StarShip fields. And then applied charge is usually what we want to charge the customer. So that's what StarShip is going to write back onto the invoice inside of Sage. Okay. So once we're ready to process a shipment, I can simply click Ship and Process down here, or up top under the shipment dropdown. We could save shipments. Maybe we're staging them. Here's the full ship and process. If you also need to create a return label at the same time, we can do that. But here is ship and process. Also, we have shortcut keys. So I just click ship and process. And in a live environment, StarShip would also just automatically start printing out my shipping documents. I actually PDF them. So here they go. It takes a minute to pop all the different PDFs. And then I also do not have a thermal printer. So I'm actually using, this is what we call our smart label. As you see, a smart label would generate a shipping label and packing list together. Of course, this is just an option. We can send your shipping labels to a thermal printer or printers. With StarShip, each of the documents, we can tell them where they get printed. So some clients, hey, my UPS label is smaller than my FedEx label, so I had two different thermal printers. Again, we can just tell StarShip where those documents get printed. The packing list, your options there, they could also go to a thermal printer if you'd like. Of course, you can send it to a laser printer, or maybe if you wanted to save it to a network shared folder as a PDF, we could do that as well. Okay. So that's package 1 of 2. Here's box 2 of 2. Now, documents can also be customized. So with this one, I actually created a special template for Tractor Supply Company, has their information, their logo, and then on the templates that get designed, we can even, or you can even assign printing rules. So StarShip knows to only generate this special Tractor Supply packing list when it's a drop shipment for Tractor Supply Company. All right, let me close these. Now, also because this was international, StarShip can generate our international documents. So here's the shipper's letter of instruction. Really all that header line item data automatically populating. Here's my certificate of origin, again, all filled out for me. And then my commercial invoice, again, same thing, header, line item info is all filled out. And then this one I even customized so it is signed and dated. So now as a shipper, I just grab it off the printer. I don't have to sign and date it. Okay. All right. So just going to repeat myself. Once a shipper clicks ship and process, StarShip is going to print out any of the shipping documents we have enabled. Then it's automatically going to take them back to the main StarShip screen, where as a shipper, basically rinse, repeat, go through that whole process again. And what I'll do is I'll jump onto my Sage machine so I can show you the write back into Sage 100. So I'm going to go into SO invoice data entry. Now, as soon as the shipper clicks ship and process, what StarShip's going to do, it's automatically going to create the invoice for the sales order that we ship. So here I just shipped sales order 222. Here's the invoice that was created. Now on the header tab, I can click tracking. There's my tracking information, my carrier weight, freight, comment is up to you. Now, again, this information is going directly into the Sage table, so I can even track this using their little tracking icon. Or maybe later a customer called and, you know what, hey, I didn't get my first package. It said I should have received 2 of them. As a customer service or sales rep, I can even drill down and see what items were in each of the boxes. All right. And then on the totals, we are going to write back freight amount. So this is the standard Sage freight amount field. I'm writing back that freight amount plus or minus any freight rules. We can also do write back rules. So if there are some scenarios where you don't want the freight to be written back, maybe, hey, the order came from a website, we already charged the customer for freight, we can tell StarShip, hey, in that scenario, do not write back the freight amount. Now, underneath, I actually even have 2 user-defined fields that I've created. And here, freight costs from StarShip. In this field, what I'm doing, I'm actually taking additional shipping information. In this case, it's my live contract rate, and I'm passing it back into this field. So that way, before someone updates the invoice, they could actually come in here and look and say, hey, you know what? Why do we short ourselves on this shipment? Oh, you know what? We gave that customer that 25% discount, but you know what? They owe us money. So this should really be $75. So again, you could always also automatically override that freight amount if needed. All right, so that's the write back. Let me just accept this. And while I'm in here, let me go into sales order entry. Earlier, I was talking about how we give the power to the front office to do live rate quoting. So here in sales order entry, I actually have just a standard order set up, but this will also work for a quote. But we can come in here and we can fill out our information. We can fill out the address. Here I have going East Lyme, it's residential. Here are my line items, populate those. And then all I can do is just click rate quote. It will ask me to log in one time. Now, this feature is included with StarShip. It does not require any additional user seats or licenses. So if you wanted to, you could have a universal login, you could have individual logins, but regardless, with those logins, we could do a security rule that says, in my case, hey, user rate can only get into the rate quote function. That way they can actually process shipments. But from here, it just takes me to a screen that basically what the same thing the shipper uses. So there's my source, my sender. Maybe ahead of time, I want to do an address validation for the shipper. I can come in here, use selected, so it automatically updates that address. Oh, my transportation, here's that item box detail, where if I wanted to as a shipper, I could add boxes, even select if I know, oh yeah, I think they're usually going to put this in a medium box. I could select that, see those dimensional calculations. And then down below, I can do live rate shopping. And in this case, I originally said I wanted to go UPS, but it looks like FedEx is less expensive. So I can manually select FedEx, and then I'm just going to populate the FedEx rate. I'm going to click apply. Oop. And now what StarShip has done, I'll go back to the address. Well, we'll start at the header. Reverse translate, so it changes the ship via from UPS to FedEx in my system. The address automatically updated with the correct city. Also deselected the residential flag because it knows this is a warehouse. So It's a commercial address. And then of course on the totals is my freight amount right back. Okay. So again, that's rate quote from sales order entry. We do also have it as a standalone if you ever want anyone else to be able to use it. Just know as a standalone though, of course, it's not going to pre-populate a lot of that data because here it's just basically scraping everything from the sales order. Okay. All right. Now, another feature of StarShip that is included and also does not require any additional user seats or licenses is our dashboard program. This also is available as standalone. I'm actually accessing it through the main StarShip program, but again, if we have dashboard users, they could just get into only the dashboard program. So here I just have a heat map. Maybe we want to see where all our shipments are going, but in this drop down, we have overviews, history statuses. The look and feel of these, it could be customized by the user who's logged in because you can add additional charts, maps, tables. From here, we even have a late delivery report. Maybe I want to quickly see if any shipment wasn't delivered on time. That way I can reach out to the carrier, try to get a refund. But here's all my history, package status. These are voided. But also maybe a customer called up and said, you know what, I received my shipment, but I didn't get my packing list or I needed a certain document. As a customer service rep or whoever's going to go in here, they can even drill down into the details and even reprint any of the documents that StarShip has generated. So I'll close that. Also included here, we have a bunch of canned crystal reports. So as you see, address correction, all our daily history shipments. Here's that late delivery as a report, applied versus contract. Now I showed you how you could do that using user-defined fields, but we also have this canned report and it would simply show you, here's your shipments, here's what you charge the customer. Middle column is your contract rate or what the carrier is going to charge you. And then the third column is a simple plus or minus. So you could run that, make sure you're not losing money on your shipments. So again, a bunch of canned crystal reports. And then also in here is that e-notify program. So let me just go into pending because I actually don't send any of mine out. And we'll select this one for the sales order 222, the one we just shipped. So on this template, I just have my company information. We can bring in Sage field. So I'm showing them the PO, the sales order, letting them know, hey, it's coming UPS standard to Canada, where it's going. Down here, I have 2 packages, ETA, again, that's coming from the carrier, so that's accurate. Here's my item box detail, hyperlink tracking number. The client can click that, takes them automatically to the carrier's website. And then on this template, I even have a promo code. Hey, 20% off your next order. You can hyperlink promotional codes, so it takes them right to your website. And then with these templates, kind of like the printing documents, you can do printing rules. With these templates, you can actually do emailing rules. So maybe I don't want this 20% off promo code to go to every customer. I could set it up that it only goes to certain customers. All right, so I got here about 13 minutes. Let me quickly check and see if there's any questions. Go back over here. Bear with me 1 second. Okay. Okay. So there's a question. After making a shipment, we are not able to send the invoice to a different batch without closing StarShip. Can that be fixed? Yeah, that's interesting, Mark. Let me look into that because that definitely shouldn't be happening because of course with StarShip, it should. So I don't know if that's a bug, but yeah, I'll definitely look into that for you. But yeah, looks like there might be a bug. But normally with StarShip, if you have batches turned on, of course in my system I don't have them turned on, but you can actually select the batch you want the invoice to be written back to. But it looks like we might have an issue with that. But yeah, Mark, definitely I'll check into that and get that fixed right away. But we can even have someone connect into your system to take a look at what's going on. But yeah, that's definitely not working, and we'll definitely get that fixed for you. Okay, let's see. I don't think there are any other questions. What I can do, because we have a couple 12 minutes left, I can even show you really quick a LTL type shipment. And now, if there's anyone else on the phone that is using StarShip and you're using our desktop version, Just know I did forget to mention this, but this is our web UI version. So this is on-prem, just a different look and feel compared to the desktop version. It is a little bit faster compared to that desktop version. Clients that have switched over, they have told us that, where not only because the look of the feel, everything's now right in front of me, but also program-wise, what we did was we actually changed this. So with the desktop version, when you actually click ship and process, what StarShip is programmed to do is automatically send the shipping information back into Sage first. Then it triggers the printing of the documents. So there's always usually a little delay, a couple seconds delay before the documents print out. But now with the web UI, what StarShip is programmed to do is, no, first I'm going to print those documents, then send the information into the ERP system. Okay, and then as I mentioned, the look and feel, it's a little bit easier. All we have to do is scroll down to get to rate quoting, for example. With desktop, there are individual little tabs. And then also with web UI, with updates, if you currently have 3 separate desktop clients running, hey, there's an update, you would have to update each individual workstation. With the web UI, as long as everyone's logging into the same URL, it's just basically one and done. We update one and then everyone picks it up. So kind of another nice thing with that. Okay. But here I just brought in an LTL type shipment. So StarShip automatically goes into quote unquote freight mode. Really all our same information is going to populate. Here I have everything set up to call in a live environment, normally be electronic, where it's going to ping the carrier, also return a pro number. Just don't want a chance having a trucking company show up to our office. It does happen and we do get yelled at. So here's my carrier, transportation, service, charges. Now, also, if anyone's using a small, maybe a mom and pop carrier, or we have a customer that, hey, I want you to ship this out using ABC's trucking, StarShip does have a bill of lading module that allows you to manually add as many carriers into the system. So you could still use StarShip to process, again, maybe those bill recipient type shipments and have StarShip generate the shipping documents. Unfortunately, with any of those carriers you manually add, there is no electronic rate shopping or electronic pickup because, again, there's no connection. But, of course, you could still use that to process those different type of shipments and, again, have StarShip not only print the documents, but also get that data back into Sage. And here I'll just change this back to XPO. And then, of course, packaging, really the difference between small parcel now. As I mentioned earlier, we get into pallets. So here's my item box pallet. Same thing, I can add additional boxes, pallets using these icons. I'll just drag these items into this box. Even if we want to do custom pallets, can do that. There's my quantities, weights, dimensions, freight class. My system, it is grayed out. I just have a rule and it's set up that I'm using StarShip's database to automatically populate the freight class. And I'm also telling it, hey, if there are mixed items, always grab the highest class, or could also grab the lowest. And even if you wanted to, it could be set up, no, I want my shipper to automatically select that freight class. Okay. So again, all that information is the same. And then down below is, of course, where we could rate shop. I run this for all of them, all my freight carriers. And again, we can get into rules, but here, all the different carrier services. List charges for LTL is always 0 because they don't offer published list rates. Contract applied, same thing. I just click ship and process, and then have StarShip generate, in this case, my bill of lading, as well as my pallet label. We also do support a VIC version of the bill of lading, or if the carrier supports it, which pretty much they all do, you could have StarShip electronically deliver their version. But here, this one I even customize, so it's all filled out. I just hand it to the driver so he or she can sign it. Don't have to worry about it. And then here's that pallet label, barcoded bill of lading in Pro. And then back inside of Sage, it's going to be that same right back. So I'll go back to my new invoice for sales order 227. There's that tracking. There's my Pro numbers. There's my item box detail. And again, that right back of the freight amount. And then again, also freight cost I have sending back. Okay. All right. So that's usually what I wanted to show. Again, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to enter them in chat, or again, more than happy to do a more in-depth one-on-one discovery slash demo to make sure StarShip can meet your shipping needs, and then show you kind of more in depth of this deep integration into Sage 100.